Our next speaker is Dr. Amit Pandey, who is a consultant cataract, refractive, and glaucoma from the Center for Sight Group of Hospitals at Surat, and he would be showing the challenges in performing a glaucoma drainage device. On to you, Dr. Amit.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, ARC, for this opportunity. I'll be sharing a case of a glaucoma drainage device. This was a case of a 21-year-old male who presented to me in 2019, the history of blunt trauma with a stone while working in a factory. He was operated for a traumatic cataract elsewhere 6 months before, and then when he came to me, he was on 3 medications. His right eye was within normal limits. So the left eye, the best corrected visual acuity was 6.9 when he presented. He was on 3 medications with 32 mmHg IOP and advanced glaucomatous changes in the left eye. Gonioscopy showed open angles with few areas of peripheral anterior synecdoche and a few areas of angle recession also. So this was his anterior segment. Sorry for the poor quality of the photograph. You can see the superior conjunctival scarring there, and there's a surgical peripheral iridotomy. Cornea was relatively clear, and there was a posterior chamber IOL in the anterior chamber, and with the haptics of these lenses piercing through the iris in going with the sulcus. The anterior chamber was well formed. So the treatment plan, extensive superior conjunctival scarring, ruled out trabeculectomy. I initially thought of removing the IOL, but the points against it was that the patient had good vision. There was no endothelium damage or signs of uveitis. Extensive collateral damage would have occurred if I tried removing that IOL damage to the iris as well as the cornea, and it was a non-dilating pupil, so an SFIL, a sclerofixated lens, would have been difficult. So I went ahead with Ahmed glaucoma valve implantation to control his intraocular pressure. Started off with corneal traction suture with a 6-0 Vicryl, and then a subtenon pockets was made around 5 mm by 8 mm in size. Then cauterization was done. The tube is then primed first by injecting BSS through a 30 gauge cannula, and then placed around 8 mm behind posterior to the limbus. The tube is then sutured using non-absorbable suture. I usually take 3 to 4 sutures. And then a needle tract of a 24 gauge needle is created for the tube insertion, the silicone tube insertion, parallel to the iris, and it is cut to a size which is not too long, not too short, with the bevel up, and then inserted in the anterior chamber. It is then secured by non-absorbable sutures. A double throw suture is taken to secure it in place so that excessive movement is avoided and it doesn't damage the endothelium. Then I use fibrin glue to secure a scleral patch graft over the tube and close the conjunctiva over the scleral patch graft. At 2 years follow-up, he was maintaining good vision, and the visual fields are also stable. I don't have them with me right now. The pressures on 2 medications were 16 mmHg. So just briefly go through the Ahmed glaucoma valve. What happens after the valve insertion is that collagenous capsule forms around it with granulomatous reaction, which takes around 4 to 6 months to stabilize. And that is our hypertensive phase. So the indications of HEV would be extensive conjunctival scarring in the superior quadrant, especially after 1 or more filtering procedures that have failed. Refractive glaucomas, like secondary glaucomas, traumatic glaucomas, neovascular, uveitic glaucomas, glaucoma in aphakia, glaucoma after VR surgeries, syndromic glaucomas like aniridias, Sturge-Weber syndrome, ICE syndrome, etc. Contraindications would be eyes with, there is echo. Hello?
Okay, yeah. I mean, there's some echo coming. You can try again speaking. I think
yeah. contraindications would be eyes with severe scleral or scleral limbal thinning. Vitreous in the AC has to be first removed before putting in the tube, or it will get blocked. And if the eye has silicone oil in it, then we can place an inferior tube. Complications include hypotony. We should avoid the overpriming the tube and excessively manipulating this valve housing. Wound leaks are also relatively not very uncommon. The tube can get blocked by blood, silicone oil, vitreous, iris, etc. And hypertensive phase usually lasts around 6 months. Tube exposure and corneal touch can also happen rarely. Infection and endophthalmitis are dreaded complications. And diplopia strabismus, again, are more common with Barwold. These are my references. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dr. Amit. That was a very concise, wonderful presentation of yours. I would take the first question with Dr. Shushmita, and Murli, you could take the next one. What will you perceive as the advantages of using a glue to anchor the patch graft, Dr. Shushmita?
Sorry, what would you perceive as what to anchor?
Advantage of using a glue instead of a suture to anchor a patch graft.
I don't know. I think we are basically not particularly fond of using glues because we're always scared that the tube might move, and tube movement means more erosion. So personally, if you ask me, and most of us would any day want to suture it down and be sure that it doesn't move.
Maybe
So
we would not suture it only if it is a very thin sclera and a high myope, maybe, right? Or even then we would suture it.
We would actually, because even with those thin scleras and high myopes, you can sort, because we are tunneling it to go inside the AC anyway. So in fact, it's doubly important to have a graft, a scleral graft, which will be tectonic and not have them. And mind you, sometimes the tube also migrates through your scleral patch. So how they do that, we don't know, but it does. So I would be very wary of being anything except, anchoring it down. But just one little thing I'd like to say about AGVs is we've all struggled with the large capsule, especially in young people. So the non-valve ones have been a boon for us now that we have the Adi, of course. But with the AGV, one tip that we've learned is that even with the Adi for that matter, is even if the pressure is 10, the minute it reaches 10 or 12, we start them on aqueous suppressants post-op. We don't want inflammatory aqueous going out through a non-valve device into the capsule. So that's one small thing about the post-op AGV. Otherwise, thank you, Amit. That was really sweet, really nice.
Murli, would you ask one question before we move on to our next speaker?
Yes, madam. I have a question for Dr. Craig. Dr. Craig had, and other panelists, of course, Dr. Craig had once mentioned that he places a little bit of triamcinolone over the Ahmed valve, and this reduces chances of encapsulation, a big capsule, and also the hypertensive phase. So your thoughts, Dr. Craig, about placing triamcinolone over the Ahmed valve?
Yes, I've done it. I have a few colleagues here on the West Coast of the United States that do this routinely. They inject approximately 0.2 mLs of triamcinolone. It's also known as Kenalog 40 here in the United States. And they've been able to significantly reduce the encapsulation over the plate. Now, I haven't done it a lot, but in the one patient I did try it on, and it was probably the wrong patient to do it in. I had done it on a patient with a Multino valve, a non-valve device that we have available here, and the patient never formed a capsule. And so once the ligature suture opened up, I had to go back and actually exchange the tube for an Ahmed valve. So I would be very careful in those devices that are non-valved, but in an Ahmed valve, I think it's very acceptable to consider injecting the triamcinolone to reduce encapsulation.
Could we have placed the tube behind the iode? Question.
Can you play?
Yes, Dr. Craig?
Yes. So in my preference nowadays is if I have a patient that's pseudophakic, I place most of those tubes in the sulcus space, which is roughly 2 millimeters back from the end of the blue-gray zone on the cornea. And so I'm concerned about long-term corneal failure. We have a lot of neovascular glaucoma here as well. And so I place those tubes in the sulcus space. So if you're going to place it behind the IOL, then you need a complete vitrectomy. And in most cases, you don't necessarily want to subject a patient to a full vitrectomy unless they absolutely need it for other indications.
Yes, thank you.